I'm your co-host, Hanna Kawas. This week we'll be talking with renowned Palestinian musician Simon Shaheen. Simon, amazing on both violin and oud, will be performing his new composition, The Call, Songs of Liberation, in Vancouver on April 27th. Good afternoon to you, Simon, and welcome to the Voice of Palestine.
Good afternoon, Hanna.
Could you tell us and our listeners a bit about yourself and really how did you get involved in music in general?
Yeah, I was born in the village of Tarshiha in Palestine, and to a family of musicians, mainly my father Simon Shaheen, who was a professional musician as a composer, oud player, and a music educator. And at the age of three and a half, I started to play the oud, just living the experience of listening to him, watching him playing the oud on a daily basis. It really attracted me to the instrument, and I started to play at that early age. Mm. And then a year later, at the age of 4.5, I picked up on the violin and started to play and learn the Western classical style on the violin. So, having said that, I grew up with both worlds, with the Arab traditional musical style at its best, and the Western classical music at its best.
Okay. You mentioned, where did you learn these? Because as far as I know, Tarshiha doesn't exist anymore, does it?
No, it does exist, of course.
Mm-hmm. It's still...
Yeah. So as far as learning, I studied with my father, and I studied with a Russian violin teacher who was living in the city of Haifa at that time. Yeah. And it was very hard work, a big commitment, and but I felt that both instruments, they were like the extensions of my arms. It was so natural for me to play on both.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so you learned in Haifa basically, and your family moved from Tarshiha, or they stayed in Tarshiha?
When, a few years later, we moved to Haifa, mm-hmm. And I joined there the Italian nun school. It's called the Carmelites. Mm-hmm. This is where I did from 5th grade and up all the way to the high school.
Yeah. What year was that?
And say it again.
What year was that, Simon?
This was towards the I don't know, maybe 63, 64.
Yeah.
Around that time, yeah. And I studied there, till I graduated from high school.
Yeah, from in Haifa, you mean? Yeah.
Okay. Correct.
Yeah, and your journey took you to the U.S.
Yeah. Then when I came to the U.S. in early 1980, mm-hmm. and I attended the Manhattan School of Music and Columbia Universities. And this is also where I did my graduate studies, mm-hmm. my master's and PhD also.
Yeah, I guess that's...
And both in music performance, music composition, and music education.
Yeah, you must have known Edward Said there at Columbia, did you?
Of course, I know him very well.
Yeah, yeah. He was a great loss, really. We lost him at the early age. This is how you started your career. And could you tell us about, I heard you talk about the story of the oud that you have. Could you tell our listeners a bit about it? It's really moving story.
You mean the oud that I play on?
Yeah, you play on, yeah.
Yeah, this oud is my father. It was my father's oud, and he used to have several ouds, of course, but this is the last one he used to play, and I got it from him, and I kept it. I cherish it and perform on it, not only because it's his oud. Also, because it is one of the greatest instruments that I am aware of in the world as far as the oud. But I think you were referring to a story with the oud when I was a little boy.
Yeah.
When my father didn't want me to play on his oud, and I was probably 4 years old or 3.5.
Yeah.
And so he used to put the oud on a high proximity so I can't reach it.
Yeah.
But one day he left it in the living room on the couch, and I played on the oud, but then something happened. I brought the kiwi, the black kiwi that you paint the shoes with.
Yeah.
And I painted the whole top of the face, what we call Luigi.
Yeah.
And perhaps it was in retaliation on all this time that he prevented me from using that oud.
Yeah.
And it was a tragedy.
Yeah.
It was a tragedy, and I paid a very dear price for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these are the events that really keeps you vivid, and they mean a lot.
Yeah, it's really also, it didn't discourage you from continuing your interest in the oud.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, because I remember.
As I said, it was a big punishment, but at the same time there was also the understanding of my talent and my desire of playing on the oud.
Yeah.
But you know what? Since then, he won't prevent me from playing any of his oud.
Yeah. So you.
And in fact, I got the greatest oud from him, which I play up to the day in all my concerts in the world, America, and Canada, and Europe, and the Middle East, you name it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you made your point really, and he got it. Even when you were 4.5 years old, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, and the oud you're playing now is almost 100 years old, or what?
Yeah, it is. It is almost 100, maybe 98 years old. It's made by Nahat.
Yeah.
Nahat is like the Stradivarius of the oud.
Mm-hmm.
Stradivarius was an Italian violin maker.
Yeah.
And was the greatest. He made the most incredible violins.
Yeah.
So I call Nahat, who lived in Damascus, in Syria, in the 19th century and the turn of century, 19th and 20th century.
Yeah.
I call him and his brothers the Stradivarius of the oud making, because they made some of the most incredible instruments. And by the way, I have a oud that was given to me as present that Farid al-Atrash used to play on, and it was made by George Nahat also.
Yeah, Farid al-Atrash originally also from Syria, isn't he?
Originally from Syria, from the Mount of Syria.
Yeah,
he moved later to live in Cairo.
Yeah, in the 19th century and early 20th century, Syria included Palestine, Lebanon, and the east of the Jordan River, which is now called...
Yeah, this was the Great Syria.
Yeah, the Greater Syria. Okay.
The Greater Syria.
Yeah. So, could you tell us a bit about your career and how you are involved also with the teaching of the music to especially people from Palestine?
My career, Hanna, I have my career in different. It has many folds, several folds. First of all, I give concerts all around the world. I mean, I do almost 95 to 100, sometimes more than 100 concerts every year.
Yep.
And this including United States, Canada, Europe, the Middle East, and the Far East. On the other hand, I am an educator. I teach at Berklee College of Music in Boston, which is considered one of the greatest music schools in the world. Yeah. It's not the greatest, really. And I teach there Western classical music, American jazz, and with me going to this school, accepting this job, I brought with me Middle Eastern Arab music in particular. And instruments like the oud, the qanun, the voice, percussion, they became part of Berklee's curriculum. So anybody can come from Palestine, from Egypt, from Lebanon to study at Berklee, and they can say, I want to specialize on oud. And then they can study with me, for example.
Yeah.
So it's a very eclectic program, and I do this. Now, in my trips, I do also residencies, musical residencies, which includes music workshops, music master classes, community visits, lectures and lecture demonstrations in school and universities and colleges. And I always, whenever I do residencies, I ask to go and visit a hospital. I do something called bedside performance, where I take my instruments and I perform next to the bed of a sick person.
Yeah. Yeah, actually that takes courage because, personally I hate to go to hospitals, because of the, not because I don't sympathize with the people there, but because I get so emotional when I go there. But, that's great, really work. If you want to talk, did you go back home do you go back home regularly or, and do you?
Yeah, I go, since I came here, I go every year once or twice, and lately I have been going twice.
Yeah.
I mainly go back home, of course, to visit.
Yeah.
Because I have many relatives, my friends there, and the other thing, I go and I do performances as well as workshops with little children. This is my concern.
Yeah.
I do workshops, for example, in the West Bank with several institutions, including the Edward Said National Conservatoire of Music in Ramallah and Jerusalem and Bethlehem and Nablus. So I go there and I do usually 4 to 7 days long workshops in which, sometimes 50 or 80 or 100 children, music children, come and participate with me. And every year we choose something like 4 or 5 young musicians, and we invite them and support all their trip to come to the United States to participate at our Arabic music retreat, which takes place at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts. And this is very intense, enriching program on Arabic music that goes for 8 days.
So some kids come physically, really, to...
Of course, they come. We invite them, and they participate, and they perform. I put them to perform, and sometimes I take them to back to New York, to participate in a big concert. And some of those kids that came to the retreat, they came also to Berklee College of Music, and 3 already graduated last year.
Good, yeah. So
but we still have now something like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah. So the talents is there really, and I mean it is there in every society. But because of our history, I think people under occupation would like to learn and go to for higher education, which is really normal for people like the Palestinian people. Do you find it the movement inside the West Bank and from Israel proper? You find is it getting more difficult to go, for example, to my hometown, for example, Bethlehem?
You are from Bethlehem?
Yeah, I am from Bethlehem. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are sometimes difficulty, of course. I mean, obstacles right and left, up and down. But I remember one time I wanted to go to Bethlehem. I took the taxi from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And at the checkpoint, they wouldn't let us go through it. So what did I do? I have my violin, my oud, my briefcase. We climbed a hill.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that.
No.
There is a hill before Bethlehem. You climb it, and you end up in Beit Jala.
Beit Jala, yeah.
Yeah, and on the other side there was drivers because they are used to it.
Yeah.
And they took me to the music school where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, these are part of the daily experiences there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and Beit Jala lost most of their land with this, these settlements they're building on their land. The same with Beit.
Yeah, Hanna, we lost our land in the Galilee. I mean, we have a big land near Tarshiha.
Yeah.
In a place called Wadi Al-Qaran.
Yeah.
And the land was confiscated in the early 50s. And up until now, we cannot even... we can look at it, but we cannot enter it.
Yeah, under the absentee law, I guess, although people were...
No, it was confiscated while we were there.
You were on it?
Because they choose it to be a military space, and they decided to confiscate it.
Yeah, that's in addition to the many confiscated land under the pretext of the absentee law. Most of
definitely.
Yeah, most of the land were like that.
When I go to visit, let's say in Beirut, for example, or when I used to go to Damascus or Ari and Aleppo, I meet with many Palestinians, and they describe for me their lands and their place, and they always think, would they be able to go back and maybe claim their lands or their properties?
Yeah.
And it's an amazing experience. There is so many people who owns properties and they cannot go and claim it.
Yeah, no, not just not claim it, because like my case, for example, I have property in Bethlehem, but I can go live on it, which is ironic because they gave the Bethlehem back to the Palestinian Authority that really has no authority. But that's another story,
Right.
I'd like to go back to the music thing, and do you think there is an influence from the Arabic instruments on the Western music, like the oud or the qanun? You mentioned the qanun.
The qanun. What was the question?
Is there any influence from the Arabic instrument and Arabic music in general on the Western music? Like qanun sounds to me like piano, isn't it?
No, the influence is very obvious, and the whole Western musical world is aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, let's just talk about few instruments.
Yeah.
The oud is the forerunner of the European lute.
Mm-hmm.
And the word lute comes from a lute.
Uh-huh.
They couldn't say al-oud,
Yeah.
so the a, which is vowel,
Yeah.
it became a lute.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of L and they kept the word lute.
Lute, yeah.
And the qanun is definitely the forerunner of many plucked instruments, including the harp.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for the qanun or the oud, I wonder if those instruments would have existed.
Yeah.
And naqarat, for example, which is percussive instruments, they are the forerunners of the nakers, and they use the same word even.
Mm-hmm.
So how this happened, and I can mention a huge list of instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But musically speaking, this happened through when the Arab occupied Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And they, of course, this was one of the occupations which I talk about constantly in the world,
Mm-hmm.
that really brought culture and the sciences and astrology and music and arts in general to Spain and in particular, and Europe at large,
Mm-hmm.
at time when Europe was in the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
And they occupied, they went there, it was, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th century. So for 500 years, this was an occupation, of course, but this was one of the occupations that was cultural occupation at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And many musicians from all around Europe used to come to Spain to study music, and the Arabs started the concept of conservatory of music in Cordova and Sevilla,
Mm-hmm.
when there was no music school in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Musicians in Europe studied with individuals or under the patronage of the church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there was no music school. Secular music school, there was no such thing.
Yeah.
And musicians came to study music there, including, French and Italians and Irish and Sicilians and Portuguese. So the influence of Arabic music is so great, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And it is not only advent or clear or obvious in instruments, but also in music forms.
Mm-hmm.
You take few music forms, and there are many forms that are used in Western classical music that they are basically based on Arabic musical forms or structures.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, King Alfonso, he wrote something called cantigas, and he titled them. This is a group of songs, more than 100 songs, and he titled them Cantigas de Santa Maria, and they are based on a form that we have in Arabic music that is called muwashah.
Oh, yeah. They're beautiful, these muwajjahat, yeah.
Yeah, and it's based on the same stanzas.
Mm-hmm.
They use sometimes Arabic word and the same musical form.
Mm-hmm.
So there are, there are illustrations of this influence that is so clear.
Yeah, and you mentioned the lute is basically the origin of the guitar, isn't it?
Yeah, let's start with the lute, because the lute is the origin of all plucked instruments, including the guitar, including the mandolin, the jumbush, and many others.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely, you might want to, ask, what would have happened if there was no oud?
Yeah.
If the Europeans were not introduced with the oud in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th century and so on.
Yeah. Although we didn't keep it up, our culture, did we? Unfortunately. Lots of people...
This is the story of the Arabs, as we know it, yes. They enriched the life of the whole world with their knowledge, and unfortunately this knowledge has been suppressed big time, in our own backyard.
Yeah, so that leads us to the Songs of Liberation, the call, which is basically, that's what the title of your concert here in Vancouver. And I believe it's the title of many other concerts, isn't it? You're not just doing it in Vancouver, the call.
I am in Chicago now because tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday I will play with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And the title of my performance with them is The Arab Spring Political Awakening. And let me just say one thing, that this wasn't easy to get it through. I could have easily gone with my instruments and play my concert like world-renowned musicians and go back to New York and be satisfied. But, I suggested this idea, which was kind of tough to digest. Many people didn't accept it, of course. But then I said, I kept, introducing it and reintroducing it to the conductor and to the music directors and to members in the boards. And finally, they accepted it after, a month or so
of struggle,
of trying to explain the idea. Because the idea, as I explained it, it's not about the Arabic world and the Arab world and the Arab Spring and the political awakening. This movement basically symbolizes political awakening in the whole world. It symbolizes political awakening and consciousness and pride in the United States itself. So, somehow there was sympathy to the idea, and it is very, very powerful thing to see that Chicago Tribune or an orchestra, the Symphony in Chicago, with such caliber, which was one of the greatest in the world, will sponsor something and adopt it and make it into their own program.
And what kind of music are you playing in these concerts?
They are going to play with me the Oud Concerto, which I wrote 3.5 years ago as a commission from the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And this Oud Concerto is like the first Oud Concerto in the whole world, including the Arab world. And it's like a 38 minutes piece. That is based on Western classical form, but of course it includes, some Arab musical ideas like the Arabic maqam or the scale with the quarter tones. It includes some of the Arab rhythms in it. So what I'm doing here is I'm bringing this cross-cultural attempt, if you will, where I'm using elements from some Western classical music, Arab traditional music, maybe some American jazz harmonies, and I'm putting infusing it together in a new format, which of course is very organic. I mean, it's you hear it and you feel that this work is complete. There is nothing missing there. So this is what I'm doing, the Oud Concerto with them. But when I come to perform at the Chan Center in Vancouver, We will be doing a program in the same spirit, but the program, the musical part of it is different slightly, because we are going to perform songs from the 50s and early 60s in the Arab world, including from Egypt and Lebanon in particular, and some folk music from Palestine.
Yeah.
Why I'm talking about the 50s? Because at the time when the many countries in the Arab countries in the Middle East was revolting and fighting for their liberation against colonialism, fantastic number of musicians and music composers, the like of Muhammad Abdul Wahab, the like of Kamal al-Tawil, the like of Wadi al-Safi himself, the like of the Rahbanis. They composed music that addressed this issue, and poets wrote beautiful lyrics that reflects on the Arab spirit that aches for pride, liberty, respect, and freedom to live, you know, living with freedom like all the free world.
Yeah.
We are not different.
Yeah.
And so those songs, I thought that, 3 years ago I did this program, no, 2.5 years ago, I did this program in New York, and it was so huge, simply because you listen to those songs and they are as if they were composed yesterday.
Yeah.
They coincided with the spirit of the Arab Springs, especially 2.5 years ago in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Yemen. And I decided that this was the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah.
Also, I composed a piece of music that is titled "The Call."
Yeah.
And did I tell you the story of the piece?
No, I didn't hear it.
No. 3 years ago, I was doing a concert at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And as I was walking there, I saw a statue that resembles, it was definitely a statue of a woman, most likely a dancer. And there was a beautiful veil that covered the hair, or part of the hair, and it was all the way down to her feet. I looked at the statue. It's like a statue that talks to me. It was talking to me, and I said, when the process of creativity is a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
Hanna?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes in a second you look at something and it inspires you. Within a second you have an idea, great idea. And then you work on it, and it becomes a work, artistic work. So in a second I thought to myself, how about if I play the violin for this statue and it comes back to life, it starts to move. Right? So I wrote this piece that is called "The Call" for violin, piano, and percussion, and a dancer in New York, a very well-known dancer. She choreographed the piece, and we performed it for the first time in New York. The idea was that she stands on the side of the stage as a statue, and nobody in the audience notices her. But then, maybe a few seconds or a minute through the piece, the statue starts to move and it comes back to life. So the whole idea, I thought that it symbolizes the frozen feel and atmosphere in the Arab, the state in the Arab world. I would say the political, the cultural, the artistic state in the Arab world that has been frozen for so long, that has been like a statue. It has no spirit. And suddenly it starts to move.
Yeah.
There is a life.
Yeah.
And of course, people say, "Oh, there are many problems, and they are not going to get together." And I ask the same people, name for me any Western revolution that didn't last 10 years or 100 years and more.
That's true.
And they name for me any Western revolution that didn't cost 10 or 20 times the amount of lives.
Yeah.
So I believe that this statue, the music itself, symbolizes the ongoing fear in the Arab world.
It is a powerful image, actually, like you said.
It is, and
because
it symbolizes the freedom, the willing to move and love life, and pride, and it's amazing.
And it also not only applies to the political situation and the social and economic situation, but also at the heart of what we were talking about, the music, because since the 60s till now, you didn't find any new, enlightened and some music that we can be proud of, especially in Egypt. Maybe in other places we're a bit different, but in Egypt it's froze, all this talent that Abdul Wahab and Sumbati and all those Sayyid Darwish brought to the forefront, all of it froze, and you didn't find, aside from few examples, you didn't find the talent that we had in the 50s and 60s. Don't you think so?
That's very true, Hanna. This is very powerful argument that you're stating now. And I discuss it, in conferences, in lectures, in interviews. It's amazing that we had such... just look at the music scene in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s in the Arab world, including Egypt, of course, which was and has been the center. And look at the film industry in the Arab world, which used the film industry in Egypt itself was threatening the Hollywood industry.
That's true.
It was on the same level. The films and the producer and the directors and the actors that played at that time and came up with the masterpieces.
Yes, true.
They represented a movement that was one of the most creative in the history of mankind. Look at the theatrical art form at that time. And, suddenly I would say after the 68 and 73, with the Arab spirit, breaking and the influence, the external influence expanding drastically. Yeah, we lost this. We lost this aura of creativity, and it hasn't then. Since then, it hasn't been replaced with such enormity and quality.
Yeah, and also the dictatorship that followed was partly to suppress. Its main objective was to suppress freedom of expression, basically. And if you
I mean, you look at the Arab world that was revolting and going to the streets against foreign regimes. Yeah. Right. And you might think that this spirit will continue, but it is the spirit that was faced again, as you said, with dictatorship and totalitarianism, and of course with the help of many countries in the Western world.
Yeah, there was to play the major.
The Arab world and its resources under control, of course.
Yeah, and that's the main objective, really, to suppress creativity.
How do we then? How could we then understand the war in Iraq?
Yeah,
what is the justification for it?
Yeah.
It's proven there was no justification, but it's a war where
people
wanted the resources there, period.
Yeah, they called it first Operation Iraqi Liberation, which is spells oil. I don't know if you hear the song by David Roberts. He had a song called Spells Oil, basically. They later changed the name because they realized it's too blatant. Anyway, so, I think we covered most things. I'd like to announce your concert here, but do you have a final word to our listeners?
Yeah, I want to say that we will be coming to Vancouver we are going to be 8 musicians and a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And we have with us some of the most incredible musicians not only in America, in the Arab world, that will be playing and performing the call, including 2 vocalists.
Yeah.
And the dancer is one of the greatest dancers in the history of modern dance in America, from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So I know that it's going to be an evening of an evening of creativity and an evening of liberty, if you will, musical liberty. And the people are going, the listeners, they are going to participate not only with their minds and ears, but also emotionally.
Yeah. Could you give us a sneak preview about what songs, or 1 or 2 songs that's going to be performed from the 60s?
Yeah, for example, there was a beautiful song. I don't want to give you a list because
we don't want that. People to
we don't want to give the listeners everything we're going to do.
No, that's
but
true.
One of the songs that the most incredible songs that Kulthum sang in the 50s was a song about Egypt and Al-Watan Al-Arabi.
Yeah.
And it was written by Riyad al-Sumbati.
Yeah.
It's titled Ya Hubbina al-Kibir.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Ta'ish وتسلم يا وطني.
Yeah.
This is the end of the refrain.
Yeah, I remember it. It's beautiful.
This is a huge song. You listen to it and you get the buzz in all of your body.
And as usual, Kulthum plays it for 2 hours. I hope you're not going to repeat that experience.
No. The whole song is hardly like 8 or 9 minutes.
Oh, good.
And yeah.
Because
it's the other type of songs like the love songs that
they are
where she could elaborate and repeat and
goes for an hour and a half. Yeah. No, but she's.
But this one is one of the most incredible songs, musically and lyrically.
Yeah. Actually, I have old cassettes for her, for Abdul Wahab, and for Abdul Halim Hafiz. That only the songs, compatriot songs. The military songs.
Yes. We are going to do also a Fairuz song, but I'm not going to name it.
Yeah, okay. I'll guess it's maybe Jerusalem or related to Jerusalem.
I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, Simon. It was really a pleasure to talk to you, and we encourage our listeners to come out to the concert on April 27th, which will be at the Chan Center, and people, they could order their tickets at Ticketmasters or from the Chan Center.
The Chan Center at the University of
Columbia.
Yeah.
So, and the concert.
I definitely support you. Yeah. Our Arab community should go out and be an equal participant with the Canadian general public.
Yeah, and
our presence is very important.
For sure. And the concert starts at 8 p.m.
At 8 p.m., yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Simon, and it was really a pleasure talking to you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Hannah, and it was pleasure also getting to know you.
Yeah, keep up the good work. Have a nice afternoon. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And that was Hannah Kawas speaking with renowned Palestinian musician Simon Shaheen. And with that, we conclude another edition of The Voice of Palestine. I've been your co-host, Marian Kawas, and our final piece of music is an Oud Solo by our guest, Simon Shaheen, and we dedicate it to all those Palestinian artists who have kept the legacy and spirit of Palestinian culture alive.